Book 101's all about the bookstore I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a Yale PhD in public health, an author, TED speaker, and of course, a CEO too. No other than Dr. Crystal T. Harrell. Welcome on Book 101, Dr. Crystal. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yes, thank you so much for having me today, Daniel. The only thing you didn't say is that I was born and raised in Alabama. My
Yes.
research focused on psychological health. So I looked at the intersection between perceived stress and psychological health among young adults living in the US. And my primary focus was on college students. And so my concentration is behavioral science, social and behavioral science to be exact. And I just truly love the research process. I love formulating questions and doing what it takes to answer those questions. And I just love the collaborative experience of working with researchers, other researchers as well.
Dr. Crystal T. Harrell, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today let's talk about the inner journey to outer success, spiritual growth, and academic triumph. And tell us, what is the direct link between the inner journey and outer success? How do you define spiritual growth in the context of academic pressure and achievement?
Yeah, so I would say that there is no outer success without the inner journey. I think our society has placed a lot of focus on, the things that we accumulate, like the material things, the money, the status, and the whatever it is, whatever type of position that we have. But the truth is, you could have all those things but still be unsuccessful because if you don't have peace, if you don't know who you are, can you really say that you really have your sense of health and well-being? And that's what our focus is here, and that's what the focus is on all the research that I do and everything that I've truly lived is trying to figure out how do we create a more meaningful lives for ourselves. And the only path I've found for that is to go within, is to really take that inner journey to your greatest truth, and no one knows what that is but you.
Yes, definitely only you people,
Hmm.
not others. So, why is the development of inner qualities like mindfulness, self awareness, and resilience a non negotiable foundation for sustained academic triumph rather than just a nice addition?
So if I understand the question correctly, you're asking what does all of those qualities like mindfulness have to do, I guess, like when it comes to comparing those with like things like your academic success.
Yes.
Mm. I think they're, to be honest, I think they're different sides of the same coin. So the most successful students that I've seen academically have had those concepts that you just spoke about. They're very mindful, they're aware of who they are and why it is that they're actually in college, to be exact. And the more I work with students, the more I see that a lot of students just need more guidance on the inner journey. They need guidance, not just academic guidance but also like mentorship, like helping them answer these difficult questions that come up. That you're at a very pivotal time developmentally when it comes to being a college student. Your brain isn't fully developed, so to speak, before while you're in college. And there's a lot of things that are happening, like you're moving away from home, you're starting to explore life for yourself. And I think a lot of students just have questions about the bigger picture, so to speak. And the students who were curious about learning more about who they were the most successful students that I've seen because they've had a greater purpose.
The bigger picture for sure. And in a world that often prioritizes grades and outcomes, how do you convince students and educators that focusing on their inner journey is actually most practical path to outer success they desire?
I would say that I don't know if convince is the word I would use for the approach that I use, because if you have to persuade someone to do something, then it's not truly where they are on their journey. I just live my truth. I go down the journey for myself. You know, it's the old ancient wisdom. Like, if you want to change the world, then you have to start with yourself. And that's what I do. I first go on the journey for myself. And when students come to me and they ask me, how did you do this? Like, all the credentials that you read off, like getting into Yale, you know, getting over, you know, close to over $500,000 in scholarships and everything that happened with coming from public housing, that journey really required me to go inward. It really required me to look at, again, the bigger picture. And so when students come to me and they ask that, then I'm just honest about it. Like I say, there were a lot of anxieties, there were a lot of fears that I had to work through. I
Hmm.
talked about this in another interview, but I had to negotiate with my fear. When I first started applying for scholarships, there weren't a lot of people, they were very competitive. Like, I was rejected a lot. And
Hmm.
so there were a lot of fears that I had to work through, and I had to really negotiate with my fear that was telling me not to even try. But I just convinced myself that if I didn't try, then there was no way I was going to get a scholarship. I was less afraid of rejection and more afraid of what would happen if I never tried.
True.
And so I'm honest with students about that process, about that inner journey. It's a journey of self discovery, and it's one that's never going to end, whether you're in college or not. College is just one part of your life, you know. It's just one part. So you still have to know who you are if you really want to live the life that you know you can live. And no one knows what that life is but you.
Yes.
Mm.
And Dr. Crystal, on practical integration and mindset, what does a daily inner journey practice look like for a student facing immense academic pressure? Is it meditation, journaling, or
Mm.
something else?
Yeah, I think there are many techniques. I convince I encourage students to try different, you know, modalities, like try different techniques, because, you know, for me, just speaking from my own journey, journaling has always been a part of my daily practice. Right, it's something I started when I was a kid. I've always loved writing because I'm more introverted, and so if I could spend time, you know, not talking and just in my own little world and just getting my thoughts out of my head and onto paper, to me that was bliss. That was me pouring into myself. And some students don't journal. You know, some students hate writing, and if you hate writing, don't force yourself to write. Try, you know, try a walking meditation. Like, you know, take a walk without any music, without, you know, having your phone, you know, talking on the phone. Just walk through nature and allow yourself to, what I do is I try to figure out how many things I can be aware of, right? So we're overloaded with all this sensory information. Like, you know, there are so many things in our environment that our brain just kind of ignores, you know, just for the fact that we don't get overloaded with everything that's around us. But I try to just pick out different things that I haven't seen before. Like, oh, I never noticed that store, or I never noticed that tree, you know, was, you know, half dead or something like this. So, you know, like, that's one way, but there are so many different ways. The way that you explore these different things is the internet. Like, we have access to, you know, a world of information on our phones, and it's always mostly in our hands. So just look at different daily practices to help you get grounded and to help you come back to your center, come back to yourself, and try them. And whichever one clicks, go with it. You know, you don't have to do what someone else does. You know, do what works best for you.
Academic triumph often comes with anxiety and fear of failure. How does your
Mm.
spiritual growth directly address the mitigate these specific challenges?
Yeah, this is a beautiful question. I've actually never articulated it before, but I guess, like, just from my own reflection, the more I've grown spiritually, the more I've taken the time to get to know who I am. I've seen that most of the things stacked against me, most of the fears and worries that I've had, they never happened. And so I just started to recognize that pattern and started to see that, you know, potentially what's in me is greater than any obstacle. Like, you know, you start to grow bigger than your fears as you start to grow spiritually, because the human spirit is bigger than most of all. Like, look at everything that we've lived through as not just a society, but as a a global society. Like, if you're listening to this, you've survived the recent pandemic. That was traumatic. That was
Yes.
that was awful for the
Yeah.
entire world. So you're here. There's something inside of you that is fighting to be here, that wants to be here, that has a purpose here. So just recognizing that your spirit, your essence, is here for a reason, and that no amount of fear or worry is going to stop you from being here. Now it's just a matter of what it is that you want, right? And to get clear on
Yes.
what you want, you have to know who you are. So that's why, again, going back to that inner journey, no one can tell you who you are unless, they've lived in your body or had your thoughts and seen your world through your eyes. But no one has done that but you.
Yes. But you, so on challenges and modern pressure, Dr. Crystal, what are the biggest internal barriers that hinder students' inner journey and how can they overcome them?
Mm. I would say, like, just from my own journey and also the students that I've worked with in the past, the biggest barrier is just this idea that we have to compete with our peers for a limited space. When I think that the culture of school has really made it, appear that way. But if something is for you, then it's gonna be for you. And I think that just that sense of competition has caused a lot of anxiety for students because they're constantly feeling like I'm not enough. Nothing that I do is enough. Nothing that I ever achieve is going to ever make me feel like I'm enough. And students really walk around with that silently. I know I did for years. I would say out of the 11 years I spent in school pursuing my doctorate, the last 3 were the only 3 years of that experience that I've truly enjoyed. I mean, like, I loved it. Like, I was so sad to graduate. I was happy to graduate, but I was also sad because I was gonna miss all the
Yeah.
fun I was having, but just like doing research and living my life. Like, I was studying abroad, so I was living in places like Bali and Thailand and Germany. So I was really like living the life I always dreamt of as a college student my last 3 years. But the years before that, I was miserable. I was struggling with anxiety. I had panic attacks in class that would send me to the nurse's office. And what changed, now that I'm reflecting on it, is truly the fact that I got clear on why I was doing this. I detached my sense of self-worth from my degree and recognized that it was just a tool I was using to create something for my community, and to do something that was in me. It was in me. And it's in the student who's, listening to this. Like, if there's a vision that you have for whatever it is you want to achieve academically or even beyond that, it's in you. Like, you got the vision for a reason, but you have to take the steps towards that. Mhm.
How does the constant connectivity and noise of a modern life especially disrupt inner journey and what are your strategies for creating a mental silence?
Mm. There's a lot of distractions in our external world in the modern society. One thing that I do, and I credit my boyfriend for this, because when we first started dating, like 4.5 years ago, he convinced me, or he suggested that I turn off my notifications on my phone. So whether that's notifications for Instagram or Facebook, like, if you're constantly being dinged, it's like we don't really sense it, but it's like these micro, I guess, anxieties, like these micro kind of nudges for us to pick up our phone and to constantly be checking like who's trying to connect with us. When in the past, I don't think we were programmed to live that way. I don't think we were constantly programmed to be bombarded with notifications on our phone. So I would say turn it off. If there's something that you really need to know, then have a time where you check it. And since I've turned off my notifications, my screen time has decreased significantly. Like, I don't spend nearly as much time on my phone. I mostly read now. Like, since I'm done with school, I'm not constantly reading articles. I'm reading books now. And so that feels good. Again, my personal library is growing, which is like, as an introvert, that's like my favorite thing right now that's happening in my life, is seeing my library grow. So it's a lot, but I would say, like, just having notifications on your phone, turning those off would be one way. And just recognizing that not everyone has to have access to you 24 hours of the day.
Yes, definitely. And for a student who feels they are busy to focus on spiritual growth, what is your response? How can they start with just a few minutes a day?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the question you asked me about those daily practices. Like it starts there, like even if you, whatever, practice you choose, whether that's meditation or walking meditation, or whether you choose journaling, like carve out an hour a day. Like, if you spend 3, 4, 5 hours on your phone just scrolling, use one of those hours to dedicate to yourself. Like you're the important person in your life, and nothing that you do is going to grow unless you do. And that's something I wish I had learned earlier in my life, was that everything that I did was an expression of who I am. So if I'm connected to myself and I love myself, and not this, new age kind of like self-love, like let me go spend $1,000 on myself. Like no, like loving yourself means that you're integrated. Everything that you think, you say, and you do is in alignment with your truth. That's true self-love. That's It's keeping your commitments to yourself. It's pouring into yourself. Speak, recognizing the way that you speak to yourself. Just paying attention to your inner voice. I would say that that is the biggest thing.
The biggest thing indeed. Dr. Crystal, as a Yale PhD in public health, an author, TEDx speaker, CEO, what are your short term and long term goals?
Ooh, I have a long-term vision for doing more of this, speaking with, incredible hosts like yourself, trying to, get the message out, because I feel like everything that I've lived through was for a purpose. And I went through some very dark periods of my life that almost took me out, and especially when I was in college because of all the stress. But getting to the other side of that through everything that I just shared with you, through these daily practices, through that process, that journey of self-discovery, which is what I wrote about in my first book. Like everything that I'm speaking about, I've lived. And so I want to share that with students, because maybe there's another student who is in my, like, was in where I was, they're in that place now, and they just need to see some type of guiding light, or see that it's possible to get to the other side. Because seeing the way life is now, like it is so incredible, and I'm so grateful and so blessed to live the life that I live now. But just knowing that there could have been a different reality where I didn't live this life, So I would say my long-term goals is just building my platform, speaking more, using my voice more, which, like I said, as an introvert, it's not something that I naturally want to do. Like I could spend all day in my own little world, but I
Mhm.
don't want to keep this information to myself. It saved me, and I want to share it with other students and other people, and maybe it could help them as well. And then my short-term goals are just doing whatever it takes to do that, whether it's doing more interviews, making long form content on social media, or just writing more books. Like I'm working on my third book now, and that to me is like the greatest thing. It's just taking those small steps towards the bigger vision.
The bigger vision indeed, and good luck to your goals,
Mm.
and looking forward for more
Thank you, Daniel.
success. Dr.
Thank you,
Crystal,
Daniel.
what would your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
I would say get to know yourself so that you can be more like you.
Yeah,
Like not everyone's going to spend,
true.
1,000 years in school like I did. Like everybody is on their own path. But the constant, what I've seen from my journey, the people that I've studied who have gone on to create these incredible lives for themselves, they always took the time to get to know who they were and what it is they wanted most out of life. Not just making a lot of money, which I'm sure that's a major goal for a lot of people, because it does give you the opportunities to have greater experiences. But the money that you make and the wealth that you build is going to be a byproduct of you walking in your truth and using your unique gifts and talents to serve the world, because your money and your income is going to come from you being of service, you know
Yes, definitely. And thank you for that advice, Dr. Crystal. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Oh yeah, the first one I started with was The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Start there and watch your entire life change.
Yes, definitely. And thank you for that recommended book. And tell us, what is the title of your book?
The title of my current book is Butterflies Everywhere, and the subtitle is Turning Difficult Transitions into Beautiful Transformations.
So tell us, what is all this butterfly, Dr. Crystal?
Yeah, so butterflies are a metaphor for transformation. They're a metaphor of what happens when you have to truly become someone new, right? Like we live these lives, for me, especially the first part of my life, I was not the person that I am now. Like I was a different person. I was a child. I was overcoming childhood trauma of watching my father lose his battle with cancer and all the chaos that happened after that. I'm one of 10. So you can imagine how much chaos happened. Now we are single parent income with a parent who, just has a high school diploma. So my mom was, it was like I lost two parents at one time because I never saw my mom after that. She was constantly working. So like all the trauma and everything that happened with that, I was living that way and building my life based off of survival. And now I'm in a new phase of my life where I'm building it based off of love and alignment and leadership. So that transformation took me truly breaking down and becoming someone new. And so I want to walk, readers through that process of what happens when you become someone new, because life is always changing. But just because you go through a change doesn't mean you're going to be transformed by it. But there's a way, and I call it soul alchemy, but truly transforming
Yes.
who you are at the core level.
How about your crystal clear? What is all about?
Yeah, that was my first best-selling book. So I launched that March 21st of 2021, I believe. And that book truly was like my first time ever sitting down and looking at my journey, because I was just living it. I was just, you know, I had the goals and I was just doing it, and I wasn't talking about the journey. And I got a lot of questions from, young girls in my hometown, how did you do it? And so my mom actually recommended that I write a book about it and call it Crystal Clear. And so I did that. I put my entire journey in a book so that people can feel inspired and have a sense of hope, whether it is that, whatever path they're on. I just wanted to be one source of inspiration for someone.
Dr. Crystal, we are truly, truly inspired. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other
Of
podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season. I'm a book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and mental health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So to sum up our discussion for today, Miss or Dr. Crystal, can you please give the summary of your book, Butterflies Everywhere plus Crystal Clear?
Yeah, so of Butterflies Everywhere is truly about taking the changes that we go through in life and making them count, truly becoming someone new by having that vision of who it is that we desire to be. Because it's not about the goal, it's about who you become as you're pursuing the goal. And so Butterflies Everywhere is an opportunity for readers to really take all the changes that happens to us in life. And like I mentioned before, use that process of soul alchemy, of becoming someone new, to really create a life that you desire to live. And Crystal Clear is taking, it's more of a memoir, I guess. My
Yes.
20, I was 26 when I wrote that book, so it's very short. It's a quick read, but truly, looking at the journey of, the subtitle is From Public Housing to Ivy League. So coming from, where I started, where all the odds were stacked against me, to where I ended up, as an Ivy League doctoral student. And it's not so much about me, it's about the reader and seeing, like I said, one journey of someone who had a vision and who took the steps towards that vision. But everyone is on that path, so it's just a reflection.
A reflection indeed. And Dr. Crystal T. Harrell, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your books, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so you can find all of my projects on my website, Crystal T Harrell and .com. And you can, look at my website, all my books are there and everything is there. And yeah, join my email list. I'll send updates there as well.
Yes, people, let's support Dr. Crystal T. Harrell because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering advocacy, and for sure, more and more empowering business to come. So, Miss or Dr. Crystal, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.